Good morning. Where are you from? All right, so I have 5 announcements to make before I begin, and the first announcement is this. I have been in the industry and spoken in your industry in a variety of different organizations. I've done research, so I have a fairly good idea of what you do. However, I don't know your personal set of circumstances. Even though I don't know your set of circumstances, what do you think that in the next 90 minutes, you can go ahead and start the clock. What do you think in the next 90 minutes that what you're going to experience in here about behavior can have a significant impact in your life? What do you think the chances are? High or low? What do you think? Let me hear it again. Actually, it's very low. It's very low that what you're going to experience is going to go any further than entertainment. Then you might ask, then why bother? Well, here's the why bother. Because it's possible. It's possible that what I share with you can have a significant impact. Is it likely? No. Is it possible? Yes. We're going for that possibility. So in order to give us a higher chance of having that as our probable outcome, high impact, I'm going to ask you to participate in a certain way. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to put blinders on and to imagine that I'm your coach, one-on-one coach, for the next hour and 29 minutes. I'm speaking to you individually. And I'm going to ask you to think about an area in your life where you want improvement. It can be health, business, personal, all 3. But blinders on, I'm talking to you one-on-one, area in your life where you want improvement. Now, I'm going to simplify, and there's only going to be one takeaway, one major takeaway. This one major takeaway is a behavioral dynamic that you didn't have when you walked in the room that you will have when you're done. It is this one behavioral dynamic that has a chance to be significant and have this great impact. And also, let me give you some recommendation about how you participate with this program. I'm going to ask you to participate without judgment. Now, here's what I mean by without judgment. If I were to say to you that there's an 80% correlation between being a decamillionaire and being in an exercise and fitness program, and you're not in an exercise and fitness program, observing that with judgment would be to say, I should be exercising. I'm not doing something that's highly correlated to a high degree of success. That's judgment. All I'd want you to do is observe that without judgment. Just observe, I'm not doing something that's highly correlated to a high degree of success. Versus I should be doing something. All right, so with me so far? All right, so those are my announcements. So let's begin. And I'd like to start by sharing an example that I have as a pilot. Any other pilots in the room? Oh, a few, okay. I'm a pilot. I fly Bonanza, which is a very nice high-performance single-engine aircraft. I'm going to tell you about the first time I was going to be in the clouds by myself without an instructor. I was flying from John Wayne Airport in Southern California over to an organization called Angel Flight in Santa Monica. Have you heard of Angel Flight? It's a national organization. The pilots volunteer their time and expenses for medical transportation. It was forecast to be a 1,000-foot ceiling. What this means is at 1,000 feet, 100% of the sky is covered with clouds. I was going to be in the clouds. This is going to be my first time in the clouds by myself without an instructor. I was bringing my marketing person with me, and I told my marketing person, I'm going to be a little bit busy on this trip. I won't be able to talk to you much. The translation is, this is my first time in the clouds by myself. Good luck. I get to the airport. It's a cloudy day. All of a sudden, the ground control clears me to taxi and hold short of the active runway. I'm holding short, and the tower calls my aircraft, Bonanza 9198 Quebec. I'm hoping they're going to say, we're too busy for small aircraft on this instrument day. Turn around and go back. What did they say? Cleared for takeoff. So I get center line, I get full power, I'm at liftoff speed, I pull back, I get the wheels up, make some adjustments, gaining altitude 500, getting hazy 800. At 1,000 feet, it's like someone put a blanket over my eyes at 1,000 feet. This is what it looks like. Let's take a closer look right in there. This is it. This is what I see at 1,000 feet. And I want to tell you that I was absolutely terrified. I was so afraid that my legs were shaking like this hysterically on the rudder pedals. I didn't dare look at my passenger because I didn't want to see what my passenger looked like looking at the pilot freaking out. And I remember my thinking was, I'm either going to do this or I'm going to die. And this wasn't much long after JFK Jr. had died in his aircraft accident. Do you remember that? Over 80% of small aircraft accidents are what's called VFR into IMC. VFR stands for Visual Flight Rules. The weather deteriorates. IMC means Instrument Meteorological Condition. Here's what the problem is. When I have no visual reference, can I have that same slide, Terry, again? When I have no visual reference, I can't tell what the aircraft is doing, and I can't trust myself to interpret what my senses are telling me. Let me give you an example of how easy it is to deceive human senses. Take a look at this. What would you say the distance is from the ground to that wingtip? Go ahead and shout out the number that comes to you. What do you think the distance is? 12 feet, 8 feet, something like that. Now, here's what you want to keep in mind. What you were in reference to be able to give that judgment, what you're in reference to is your image of a small airplane. So your brain has what's called a schemata, which is a collection, a neural network that has your image of a small aircraft. Now, watch what happens when all I do is change what you're in reference to. Watch how your entire interpretation dramatically changes. How about now? That arrow is the same size as that arrow. Now, of course, your entire interpretation changes, but what never changed was the fact. What never changed was that airplane. What changed was your observation. What changed was what you paid attention to, and that's going to be important when we talk about that one behavioral dynamic that I have for you. Let me give you some other examples of how limited human senses really are. So how about this? Are these lines parallel, or do they slope up and down? Well, what's it look like? Look at the second line from the top. Doesn't that look like an upward slope to you? Well, we can't trust our interpretation in reference to black and white squares. Let's change your reference point. The way that we do that is draw a straight edge. When you draw a straight edge, you can see that line's not sloping at all. The black and white squares deceives our perception. How about 2 down from that? Wouldn't you look at that and think that that's a downward slope? Nod your head if you agree. Does that look like a downward slope? Well, we can't trust our interpretations of the black and white squares. Let's change what we're in reference to, a straight edge. In fact, they are all straight parallel lines. Now, here's my favorite. Is square A darker than square B? When you look at that, what would you say? Is square A darker than square B? You would say yes. So I look at this and I say, I don't know what you're getting at. Square A is obviously darker than square B. How many of you would put $100 that square A is darker than square B? Let me see the hands. Who would put $100? Would you get that $100 out? Because you would lose that. They are identical. Now, you see, you look at this and you say, what are you talking about? They're identical. They're not identical. Square A is darker than square B. It's right in front of my eyes. You can't trust your interpretation of your senses because they are identical. But here's what the key is. A is surrounded by white space. A is in reference to white space. B is surrounded by dark shaded space. B is in reference to dark. And that gives it that lighter appearance. So what I did was I took the same copy and I cut out square B. I put it right on top of this copy and I videotaped myself moving it up on top of square A. And when I move it, it looks like it's changing colors right in front of your eyes. It's never changing colors. I'm only changing what it's in reference to. Watch this short video. Can you move that hand off the screen, by the way? Thank you, Terry. It looks like it changes colors right in front of your eyes. Is that crazy? It's never changing colors. It's always the same. It's just what it's in reference to. I hope that you can see, and by the way, send me an email and I'll send you a copy of this, and you can win something by challenging somebody with this. But anyway, and so count the black dots. Any problem there? An issue doing that? Do we have some limited human perception? So when I'm in the clouds like this, and thank you, Terry, when I'm in the clouds like this, I can't trust my perception. And I'm freaking out, scared to death. And then I started to think, I'm either going to do this or I'm going to die. And I further started to think, I've been in worse weather than this with an instructor, and I've flown the plane. Imagine that my passenger was a flight instructor. What kind of a conversation would I be having? My flight instructor would be saying, stay on your system of instruments. This is what's going to save my life. These are my instruments right there. I'm going to focus on one. That's called an attitude indicator. It's a gyroscope, which means rigidity in space. Just by looking at this one instrument, I can tell what the aircraft is doing. It's blue to the top, brown to the bottom, and there's a miniature airplane right in the center. I'll highlight that for you. And if I look at this and if I see this, I'm in a climbing left turn. I had better want to be in a climbing left turn. Even if I might feel like I'm straight and level, if I see this, I'm in a climbing left turn. And so staying focused on my instruments, I gain confidence in the flight. And then one of the most beautiful things to happen to any pilot, particularly from being in the clouds, is when you break out of the clouds and right in front of you is the airport that you intended to go to. I don't take this lightly, even on a clear day, believe me. Now, the reason that I start off by sharing this with you is because I have a system that has a high probability of a predicted result. If I follow the system, I can pretty much almost guarantee it's a high probability that I will have this result. So my question for you is, where's the system for behavior in business? Where's the system and behavior for you to run yourself so that you're peak performance most of the time? It doesn't exist. It's amazing. So what you're going to experience today is a system for elite performance. And this system will result in 3 words. Those words are peace of mind. How many of you could use some help with peace of mind by raise of hands? What goes into having peace of mind? In my opinion, there's 3 areas of our life that need to be fulfilled, all 3 areas. If one of these areas is not fulfilled, you're not going to have peace of mind. First area of application of what you experience, and by the way, my breakout session, I think it's 3:30 in the afternoon, is going to implement what you're experiencing today. First area of application would have to be in your health. If you're not in good health, you're not going to have peace of mind. If you don't have energy, you're not going to have peace of mind. So that's the first area to apply. Second area of application would have to be in your personal life. If you're in a struggling relationship, you're not going to have peace of mind. How many of you, by raise of hands, are in a rotten relationship right now? Let's see the hands. How many of you are in a rotten relationship, but you just can't raise your hand right now? Anybody in that category? I happen to be very blessed. I've been in a wonderful, loving marriage for 10 years, 13 total. And anyway, and so the second area of application would have to be in your personal life. And then the third area of application would have to be in your business, in your finances. Those are the 3 areas of application: your business, your health, and your personal life. Let me just ask, how many of you are at least interested in improving the results in one of those areas? How about interested in making more money? Is it unanimous in the room? I want you to remember there's an hour and 18 minutes left in this presentation. I want you to remember that at an hour and 18 minutes, you raised your hand and you said that you had an area in your life that you wanted to have improvement. Would you remember that? All right, so who would you say your biggest competitor is to reaching your goals? Who's your biggest competitor? Is it a competing company in the same private duty space that you're in? Is it the economy? Is it the area of the country that you live in? Is it pending legislation? Is it disclosure? Is it world events? Is it the weather? Who would you say your biggest competitor is to reaching your goals? That's right. Somebody said it. You are your biggest competitor. Now, this program has 2 parts. The first part is to take a look at what does it mean to say, I am my biggest competitor? And then the second part, once we look at that, the second part is, all right, so here's what that means. Now, how do I compete with myself? So are you ready to get to work? Everybody with me so far? Blinders on? You have that area? So let's get to work. What I want to do is I want to talk about human nature. And here is a very strong statement that I want to make. You have far more capacity to create the circumstances and events in your life than you are aware of. I'll say it again. You have far more capacity to create the circumstances and events in your life than you are aware of. And let's dig into how we are as human beings. The way that you think affects how you feel, and that affects what you do. Let me say it a different way. The perception that you have affects your physiology, and that affects your actions. Let me say it a third way. You and I are going to resist doing activities that we don't feel like doing. For example, if you don't feel like getting up at 3:50 in the morning and exercising, you're not going to do it. If you don't feel like staying on a precise food plan, you're not going to do it. If you don't feel like being up to date in the latest technology, you're not going to do it. If you don't feel like spending time with your family, you're not going to do it. Basically, our first point says you and I are going to resist doing activities that we don't feel like doing. How many of you would agree with that by raising your hands? See, not all of you raise your hand. If you don't feel like raising your hand, you're not going to do it. Now, blinders on. I made a statement to you. Blinders on, talking to you. I made a statement that you have far more capacity to create the circumstances and events in your life than you are aware of. and I'm going to give you some information that will help you be more powerful in reaching your goals. However, the first issue that we have is human nature says you're going to resist doing things you don't feel like doing. Now, let me give you some good news. I don't need to give you something new in this presentation. You already have that capacity for great achievement. What I need to give you is access to it. And the way that I give you access to this is by influencing how you think. So, since perception, think, feel, and act. Now, many times there's trainers in the room. Trainers come up to me all the time and they say, we know exactly what you're talking about. We know how to train our people to do what they need to do. If they would just do what we train them to do, they'd be all more successful. We agree with your first point. So I thank the trainers for their agreement. Then I ask this question: what do you turn to enhance the results of your training? The most common response that I get back is goal setting. How do you feel about goal setting? How many of you believe that goal setting works? By raising hands. Believers in goal setting? Let me see the hands. All right, let's keep this confidential. Keep this in the room. Goal setting doesn't work. Let me give you a disclaimer in case there's any regulators in the room. Goal setting is a part of my recommendation, but not by itself. If all you did is set goals, here's what you're going to see. On the top line, these are your goals. This is your business plan. This is what you want to accomplish. There's another word that goes in this line. I just cringe when I hear the word. The word is potential. The reason that I cringe when I hear the word potential is because what you're capable of doing really doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the bottom line, your actual performance. Can we talk about this? Have you ever said that you're going to do something that you wanted to do and you didn't do it? Nod your head up and down if that applies to you. All right, why does that happen? Let's look at a dynamic here, and I'm going to go outside of your industry, then we'll go into your industry. I was doing my program for a mortgage company in 1986 when the interest rate on a 30-year fix was at 8.5%. Let's go back in time. In 1982, the interest rate was 16.09%. How many of you remember that marketplace? You remember that marketplace? Here's a graph that will bring back the memories. In 1984, the interest rate had dipped down to about 13%. And in 1986, it was hovering around 10%. One point in time, it dipped down to 8.5%. Now, 16%, a couple years, 8.5%. This company put an ad in the newspaper for refis, and the phone was ringing off the hook. The lenders, who were independent contractors, commission-only salespeople, were coming into the office, sitting at their desk, and answering all the market-driven refi business, and they were busy. The management saw how they were doing their business and got very nervous and called a meeting. In a meeting, they said, we've got a problem here. You need to realize that we live in a cyclical marketplace, and yes, the interest rates are nice and low right now, but what's the next trend? They're going to go up. Look at the ratio of all the business in your pipeline. It's all market-sensitive, refi business. That's going to dry up. So in addition to handling all of the market-driven refi business, you also need to go out there and prospect for purchase business. And the lenders said, that's right, we do. And the lenders said that they would go and talk to 20 new people this week that could give them purchase business. They said that they were going to do this. They intended to do it. They were motivated to do it. They wanted to do it, and they didn't do it. Why didn't the lenders do the prospecting that they said they're going to do? Let's ask the lenders. Why didn't you prospect? Here's what they said. I was going to, but I was just too, what's the word? Just too busy. Now, remember I said you can't trust your interpretation of what's going on? Is A darker than B? Are these lines straight? You can't trust your interpretation. The lenders were in reference to all of their priorities. Let me show you how it would look through their eyes, because they were motivated and they wanted to go prospect. So the lender goes into the office. They're all set to prospect. The owner of the company comes over and says, there's a problem on one of your deals. It's a buy down. The borrower is moving from a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in an older, to a 2-bedroom, 1-bath in an older, more beat-up area. I don't think we can sell this loan on the secondary market as an owner-occupied. You need to verify it's going to be owner-occupied. Now, the content of this example isn't what's important. What's important is, what's the lender paying attention to? The mindset. And the lender is thinking, I know I said I'm going to prospect, but I can't be worried about the possibility of new business when I have a problem in existing business. This is a priority. I am going to prospect, but I have to handle this priority first. So they handle this. They do intend to prospect. They're all set to go prospect. Something else comes up. There's a crack in the driveway and in the foundation on this property. They need to get a geology report. That stops them. They got to handle that. They turn around from there. This borrower just forgot to mention a bankruptcy. They have to see if they can salvage this deal. Over here, underwriting wants bank statements on this borrower. They don't want to get bank statements because it shows declining income. They have to see if they can salvage this deal. One priority after another, after another, after another. And before you know it, they believed that the truth was they were just too busy. They believed that that's the truth. Let's look at your circumstances, your industry. You have goals. So you're going to have gross revenue goals. Now, I know there's a wide range between what your gross revenue is going to be. A smaller organization, maybe $1 million. A larger organization, $7 million plus. But so everybody in the room has a target of what you're going to accomplish or want to accomplish this year. And gross profit margin, you're going to have pay rate. You're going to have those ratios. You're going to hours per week per caregiver. You're going to have metrics, call conversion ratios, family meetings turns into cases. You're going to have all the metrics of what you're going to measure so that you can answer the question, how would you know if you had a great year or not in 2014? And also you're going to have activities, prospecting, database management, in-person sales calls to your referral sources. You're going to have in-home consultations. You're going to have managing account receivables, managing payroll. You're going to have alliance. One of the things that I share with people is forming alliances with other entities that service the geriatric population. So perhaps you'll form some alliances that have educational events as a result of that. Hire, train, build your team. You say you're going to do these things. You intend to do these things. You're motivated to do these things. And then you have some priorities. And of course, in my research, the two most important would be your in-person sales calls and your in-home consultations. Would you agree with that? So you say you're going to do these things, and then all of a sudden, you get busy. All of a sudden, a caregiver, there's some drama that your office hasn't handled that you need to get involved with. Something about the family of the in-home, and you've got some issues with that. You turn around from there. You plan to do your own visits. You plan to do your prospecting, but a vendor calls regarding a referral list, so you need to take that. You handle that. You're all set to do your, let's just call it prospecting and marketing, and then all of a sudden, emergency happens with one of your cases. Somebody gets hurt and injured. You turn around from there, and you need to research a hospital's website. It's a huge hospital, and you want to know what you're doing and who you're looking to speak with when you go in there, so you need to do some research. You turn around from there, you're all set to prospect. A caregiver's child is sick. You need to get that schedule. A problem with a check and payroll, you need to handle that. You turn around from there, software migration, newer version of Home Track. Now it's Clear Care. You've got an issue navigating, finding something. You have to call corporate to the helpless desk. You turn around from there. Now things get better. You get an email from Nigeria that somebody needs your help bringing $15 million into the United States. You get to keep it all. It's just going to cost you $5,000 to bring it all over. Life doesn't get any better than that. And you believe that the truth was you were just too busy. How many of you can identify with this in your own set of circumstances? Now, thank you. I know it looks like that's the truth of what's happening in your circumstances. However, remember, I'm saying that being in reference to all of what I just explained is not a peak performance state. You can't trust your interpretation of what you're experiencing. Let me show you again an example of the truth. I show you my hands are empty. I snap a finger, make a fist, and pull out a scarf. See how that works? Just fine, right? I'm going to make it disappear. Make a fist, tuck it into my fist. It's not going in my ring. It's not going in my sleeves. It's going, and you can see that the scarf disappears. And it's not here, and on 3, 1, 2, 3, it's disappeared. Right now, what you're probably saying is, what a talented individual. I'm going to show you how I did this only under one condition. It's a standard magician's trick. If it gets out that I showed you this, they'll make my card disappear. You have to promise to keep this confidential. Will you keep this confidential? Yeah, it'll be on a corporate website by the time I get back to California. Now, raise your hand if the truth for you is that you see empty hands. Go ahead and raise your hands if you see empty hands. You can't trust your interpretation. I know it looks like my hands are empty. I know it looks like you're just too busy. You can't trust your interpretation. My hands are not empty. I'm wearing what's called a Vernet thumb tip. Inside of the thumb tip is this scarf. This is how this works. On sale at my booth for $10. Includes the scarf. And I do have these. So if you come by and you get one of these and you go back and you show your colleagues, they say, well, what did you learn at the conference? Watch this. Just make sure you're careful when you do this, because this is a dead giveaway. My hands are empty. What's that? Now, I'm about ready to make a major point. I show you my hands are empty this time, and what's the only thing you see? Sticks out like a sore thumb. Now, the point is, I was wearing this every time. You didn't see it the first time, but you do the second. What's that tell you about reality? Reality isn't what's different. What's different is you are. What you're paying attention to is what's different. So it's not about the marketplace. It's not about external circumstances. It's about you. Now, since perception is the key, let's see how perceptions are formed. What is this line, concave or convex? I'm glad nobody's shouting out. You have to take a stand. You have to be in reference to left or right. So let's take the reference from the left side. Now, from A's perspective,